In the dim glow of the lantern, her voice trembled through the cold night air. "I took it off, please," she cried, her words a fragile plea that sliced through the silence of the ranch. The rancher, a rugged man named Elias, froze, his broad shoulders stiffening as the weight of her desperation sank into his bones. His eyes locked onto the delicate figure before him, her face streaked with tears, a secret unveiled in her trembling hands. What had she removed? A ring? A mask? The air thickened with unspoken dread, and in that heartbeat, Elias knew his next move would change everything. Dive into this gripping tale of mystery and emotion. Follow Elias as he confronts the unknown, unraveling secrets that bind their fates. Join the journey now, let the suspense pull you in, and discover the desperate move that will redefine their lives. Read on, if you dare. The wind howled outside the weathered walls of the ranch house, a lonely sound that seemed to echo the turmoil brewing within. Elias stood motionless, his calloused hands hovering in the air as if afraid to touch the fragile truth before him. The woman, Lena, as he'd come to know her, knelt on the rough wooden floor, her breath ragged, her dark hair clinging to her tear-streaked cheeks. In her outstretched hands lay a small, tarnished locket, its clasp broken, its contents spilling into the flickering light. "I took it off, please," she had sobbed, and those words had rooted him to the spot. For weeks, Lena had been a quiet presence on his land. A stranger had appeared one stormy night, claiming refuge from a past she wouldn't name. Elias, a man of few words and fewer trusts, had taken her in out of necessity rather than kindness. The ranch was vast, its isolation a shield against the world, and he'd needed help with the livestock after his last hand had left. She'd proven capable, her hands steady with the horses, her eyes always scanning the horizon as if expecting danger. But now, in this moment, she was no longer the stoic figure he'd grown accustomed to. She was raw, vulnerable, and the locket in her hands hinted at a story he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. Elias' mind raced. The locket was old, its edges worn smooth by time, and in sight, a faded photograph of a child stared back at him, a girl with Lena's eyes. His throat tightened. Was this her daughter? A sister? Or someone lost to her forever? The weight of her plea, please, hung between them, a silent beg for understanding or forgiveness, he couldn't tell which. His boots creaked as he shifted his weight, the sound jarring in the stillness. He wanted to turn away, to retreat to the safety of his routine, but her gaze held him captive. There was fear there, yes, but also a flicker of defiance, as if she dared him to judge her. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Elias' heart thudded against his ribcage, a drumbeat of indecision. He'd seen hardship before. Droughts that withered his crops, winters that stole his cattle, but this was different. This was personal, a crack in the armor he'd built around himself since his wife's death years ago. Lena's presence had already stirred memories he'd buried, and now this locket threatened to unearth them entirely. He crouched down slowly, his knees protesting, and reached for the locket. Her hand jerked back instinctively, but she did pull away completely. "Tell me," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "What does this mean?" Lena's lips parted, but no words came at first. Her fingers tightened around the locket, and for a moment, Elias thought she might flee. The wind outside grew louder, rattling the window panes, as if urging her to speak. Finally, she whispered, "It's all I have left of her." Her voice broke, and the tears fell freely now, splashing onto the locket's surface. Elias felt a pang in his chest, a mirror to the grief he'd once known. He wanted to press her, to demand the full story, but something in her expression stopped him. Instead, he nodded, a silent promise to listen. The night stretched on as Lena began to unravel her tale. Her words came haltingly at first, each one a struggle against the pain they carried. She spoke of a life in a distant town, a husband who had turned cruel, and a daughter, little Anna, taken from her in a moment of chaos. The locket, she explained, had been a gift from Anna, a keepsake she'd clung to after fleeing her abusive marriage. But the locket held more than memories, it bore a secret. Inside, hidden beneath the photograph, was a folded note, its edges yellowed with age. Lena had kept it sealed, too afraid to face its contents, until tonight. "I took it off, please," she'd cried, referring to the locket's clasp, which she'd finally dared to break open. Elias listened, his mind a whirlwind of sympathy and suspicion. He'd heard rumors of a woman on the run, a fugitive from justice, but Lena's story tugged at his heartstrings. The note, when she unfolded it with trembling fingers, revealed a child's scrawl, "Mama, find me." The simplicity of it struck him like a blow. Lena's husband, she confessed, had taken Anna and Vanished, leaving her with nothing but this cryptic plea. The locket had been her anchor, a symbol of hope, but also a burden she could no longer bear. She'd removed it tonight, seeking release, and now she looked to Elias for help. The rancher's world tilted. He was no hero, no savior, just a man trying to survive the land. Yet Lena's eyes, white with a mixture of fear and trust, pulled at him. He thought of his own lost child, a son who'd died in infancy, and the guilt that still gnawed at him. Could he turn her away? Could he live with himself if he did? The fire popped, sending a spark onto the floor, and Elias made his decision. He stood, his movements deliberate, and extended a hand to her. "VLL find her," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing within. The journey began at dawn, the first light painting the ranch in shades of gold and gray. Elias saddled his horse, a sturdy bay named Samson, while Lena gathered what little she owned, a worn shawl, a knife, and the locket, now tucked into her pocket. The note's words echoed in their minds as they rode out, the vast plains stretching before them like an endless sea. Elias knew the risks. Lena's husband could be dangerous, and the law might be searching for her, but he pushed those thoughts aside. His desperate move was not just for her, it was for the part of himself he'd buried with his family. Their first stop was a trading post 50 miles north, a ramshackle outpost where news traveled faster than the wind. Elias questioned the grizzled storekeeper, a man named Hank who'd known him for years. Hank's eyes narrowed as Lena hovered in the background, but he offered a lead. A man matching her husband's description had been seen heading west with a child. The trail was cold, weeks old, but it was something. Elias thanked him with a nod, and they pressed on, the weight of the locket's secret driving them forward. Days turned into weeks, the landscape shifting from open plains to rugged hills. Each night, they camped under the stars, the silence between them filled with unspoken questions. Lena grew quieter, her strength waning, but she refused to give up. Elias, too, felt the strain, his ranch unattended, his resources dwindling, but he couldn't turn back. One evening, as they sat by a small fire, Lena spoke again. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice soft. Elias stared into the flames, his answer slow in coming. "Because I couldn't save mine," he said finally, and the confession hung heavy between them. The twist came on the 10th day, when they reached a small settlement nestled in a valley. A local farmer, his face weathered by sun and hardship, recognized Lena's description of her husband. "He's here," the man said, his tone grim. "Been holed up with a girl who don't speak. Calls himself John now." Elias' blood ran cold. Tide found him, but the danger was palpable. Lena's hand shook as she clutched the locket, and Elias knew the moment of truth was near. He devised a plan to approach under the guise of trade, to catch John off guard, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. That night, they crept toward the farmhouse where John was staying. The windows glowed with lamplight, and faint voices carried on the breeze. Elias signaled Lena to stay back, his heart pounding as he approached the door. He knocked, his hand resting on the revolver at his hip, and when the door opened, he froze. John was a tall man, his face hardened, but it was the girl behind him, Anna, that stole his breath. She was older than the photograph, her eyes hollow, but unmistakably Lena's daughter. "What do you want?" John growled, his hand moving toward a rifle. Elias' mind raced. He could draw, and it quickly, but Anna was too close. Instead, he played for time. "Heard you had horses to sell," he lied, his voice steady. John's suspicion lingered, but he stepped outside, leaving Anna in the doorway. It was the opening Lena needed. She emerged from the shadows, her cry of "Anna" shattering the tension. The girl's eyes widened, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. John spun, his rifle rising, but Elias was faster. His desperate move, a lunge to disarm, sent them both crashing to the ground. The struggle was brief but brutal. Elias' strength prevailed, pinning John as Lena rushed to Anna. The girl clung to her mother, tears streaming down her face, while John cursed beneath him. Elias tied him with rope from his saddle, his hands trembling with adrenaline. The farmer from the settlement arrived, alerted by the commotion, and took John into custody, promising to notify the law. Lena and Anna embraced, their reunion a bittersweet victory, and Elias stepped back, the weight of his choice settling over him. As they rode back to the ranch, the locket's secret fully revealed, Elias felt a shift within. He'd risked everything, his safety, his solitude, for a stranger and her child. Lena turned to him, her gratitude silent but profound, and he knew he'd found a purpose beyond the land. The journey had ended, but the bond tied forged would endure. The wind carried their hopes home, and in the distance, the ranch stood waiting, a new chapter beginning under its weathered roof.